Welcome to another episode of the Shift with Elena and Vit podcast. In this session, I chat with insightful Vitaly Leoshin. He has a deep background in tech and a passion for continuous learning and growth. Together, we delve into the vital topic of soft skills and their increasing relevance in today's ever-evolving workspace, particularly as we speak in the tech industry. As we share personal experiences, discuss the impact of AI on project management, and explore the future of work, you are treated to a candid conversation filled with valuable insights and thought-provoking perspectives. So join us as we navigate the intersection of technology, personal growth, and career development in this engaging episode. And let me know what you think. Vit, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, as a fellow from another STAN country, or a republic in my case, so you're from Kazakhstan. I'm originally from Dagestan, so it's a republic of Russia, but it's always nice to meet people from the stands of the world. So tell me about your journey before we go into your professional journey. Like, what brought you to the US? How's that experience been? And what are you up to here?
Yeah, so I came here first as a student to just work for a summer, just to see how it is and gain some experience. And I learned some English, so that was a very interesting experience for me coming in first time here in 2005. And then I did that for for 2 summers. And then I said, well, maybe I should go and pursue my education there and see if I can work there. Plus, I also have my sister who recently moved to US back then, like 20 years ago. So and then when I came here to study, I found people from my community as well, Russian-speaking people and people from all post-Soviet countries, and from all over the world, basically. Yeah, and then I just spent the next few years in school, and then I got a job in a tech startup, and that's, I guess, how I end up here.
Yeah. What has been the biggest, I guess, challenge for you? I think everybody has their own. I've had my own for sure, but what has been your biggest challenge when coming to the US, like from maybe a cultural perspective or anything else?
Yeah, cultural for sure, because we didn't have same things back home as here, and it was cultural shock at first. And then, so basically, when I came here first time, it was shock one way, and then when I had to go back home, finish my education and everything, it was backwards. Now I had another shock, so it was interesting like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything starting from like scared to talking to people because I thought, well, nobody will understand me. I have a huge accent and I don't know anything about this country. Everything looks so different. But then little by little you get used to it, and you just at some point you say, you know what, I'm just gonna start talking to people. You know what, I'm just gonna start doing these things, and you adapt. So it took me a couple years to fully adapt and you know fully experience and go to see places and talk to different people from different cultures. And but yeah, overall it was a good journey for me, and I can't complain. So
Yeah, nice. Yeah, for me it was also like a lot of the cultural piece. And it's interesting that you said the culture hits you kind of both ways. When I moved to the US when I was 13, I had a huge culture shock, obviously. And then I went to Dubai for 8 years, and then I moved back to the US after 8 years in the Middle East, and that was a shock. And it's like when I moved to Dubai, it took me like 2 years to get adjusted to like, oh, like okay, I live here now. And when I came back in 2021, back to the States, it was also like it took me a couple of years. Like I'm like, okay, I guess I'm here now. It takes a while, you know. Have you noticed
right.
there's that I feel like there's that 2 to 3 years standard, like no matter who I talk to. Has it been similar for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find that even if I go outside of US temporarily for vacation or just travel, it's the same kind of experience. But then like, oh, it's just a week or two, and I'll go back, and it's gonna be fine. And yeah, so definitely, every country has its own flavor and has its own culture and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. What drove you to work in tech? Because you're still in IT right now as well. Like that's kind of your background, right?
Right. I started my education back in Kazakhstan with IT. It was decision support systems. Here, I continued with the same thing. Basically, it's analysis, databases, things like that. And it just always was interesting to me what we can do with the data and how we can make all sorts of automations and how data can support our decision making and help us answer certain questions and things like that. Even something that we don't know yet, but if you gather enough information and we look at it from many different angles, it can kind of open our eyes on the problem or find a new way of doing things. So it's always been fascinating. And here in the US, when I started going through my master's program, I had to research a lot of companies and many case studies. And like one report still stuck in my head, like the police in some city were using this for predictive analysis for crime and how they reduced crime just by accumulating certain information, analyzing it, and the system were predicting where crime was likely to occur. So those type things always fascinated me, and I said, well, that's what I'd like to do, and at least try to use in my work whenever I go.
Yeah. More power to you. You're probably super analytical as a person, right? And like detail oriented.
I am, yeah. I like to
Yeah.
have things in order, and I always, before making any decision, I like to look at many different things and put data together. So,
Yeah, I'm on the opposite. I'm like YOLO, like let's just go for it. Always like I remember when I started a business in 2019, I was lucky to have a business partner at that time who was very analytical and he would just be like, I'm like the creative, that like let's just do it. And he was like the
mm,
analytical, they're like, have we considered? I'm like, that is your job. Okay, let me know when we're ready. I'm ready to pull the trigger and go basically. But
yeah,
yeah, it's like I'm more on the opposite side, and I always appreciate the analytical people in my life because I think that's not that I cannot be an analytical person. I think in certain situations I have to be, but it takes so much of my energy. I'm more of the idea, more of the driver, like let's just go. And then
mm,
it's like I always have to have somebody by my side who's just like, all right, let's just take a moment, Elena. Let's just, tone it down. And it's so helpful to have. And now I work with a bunch of software engineers and software developers, and it's
yeah,
so hard to adapt to those conversations. And it's just a whole different world of people, like just software
yeah.
developers and techies and yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's more like feedback because if you start doing something, jump it in, and then you start gathering some data, some feedback, and then you adapt and you change direction a little bit. So that's how I always look to this.
Yeah.
More like, yeah, like that.
Yeah, nice, nice, nice. And so I'm curious how, I don't even want to ask if, because I think it's a how, because I think AI and just machine learning is affecting everything and every industry. How is it impacting your industry? And, I guess like what do you do to prepare yourself? Like now you're wear kind of the hat of a project manager, right? So is there any
Yeah.
impact on like the work that you do? Like any thoughts on AI and how it's impacting?
Maybe a little bit from project management standpoint in terms of the tools that we use.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more for product management because they mostly work with customer and gather the requirements and feedback and analyzing all of that. For project management, it's pretty straightforward. You just have your schedule, you have your budget, you have your teams, you have to run it. And right now, I'm working for government organization, so it's really just that. It's flexible. We still try to be agile, but you have to follow certain rules, certain bureaucracy, basically. But for product management, it's much more flexible in terms of you can set up your schedule with many, many small experiments and analyze all of that, and AI can help you with that. Even like brainstorming things, like figure out what features to build or analyzing all the feedback you got, transcribing all the video interviews. It's huge help, saves so much time
Yeah.
for people. Yeah, but in our products that we work, it's primarily search. For search for information, kind of like Google does and been doing for years. It's all sorts of algorithms and indexing things that help people quicker find what exactly they're looking for.
Mm.
So there are some opportunities, and we're trying to make some shifts now in that direction. So we like optimize it, make it faster, easier, smarter. So
Yeah. I wonder, and it's I mean, it's interesting because it's almost like helping us be more productive, but I wonder, I don't know if you've seen this, but it seems that although we are becoming more productive with AI, if you're able to use it, and if you're listening to this and you still haven't played around with ChatGPT or any other AI tool that you might have, those are great tools. But at the same time, we have a lot of companies that are kind of, parting ways with a lot of their employees, but you still have the work being
mhm,
done. So it's like, part of it is like, yes, we become more productive, but at the same time we're also doing more because we have less people doing the job. So it's like in one
mhm,
particular function you might be more productive, but then if you're doing two, three functions, right, which is, it happens at least in a lot of companies that I see, that becomes an issue. And I feel like we're still, although we should be working smarter, we're still working harder, it seems. Do you feel that in your industry, or is it just maybe in my world?
No, I see the same trend, especially when companies let people go and they maybe substituting people with robots in like warehouses, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe people who do intellectual work or content creation. AI can substitute a lot of that and automate a lot of that and just generate things. I'm not sure how much we can trust that at this point. There are some ethics concerns and trust concerns, and how does it come up with the things it comes up with. But it will get better over time for sure, and people get used to it. Just like we had to get used to having cars on roads instead of
Mm-hmm.
horses, and we used to having satellites in the space, and we will adopt it. Will be very quick. And over time, I think people will be more focusing on like very specific little things instead of like right now. You can have people wearing multiple hats. You can have a product manager who's doing marketing, helping with sales, doing testing, doing user research. All of those things could become separate, very specific areas to focus for a human being using AI tools to help them.
Mm.
So and it will be really, really high quality work.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm optimistic about it, but also it's like how much of it we don't know yet. To your point, like there's so much unknown. I was listening to a
Mhm,
podcast this morning, and they were saying, they were kind of making jokes around dating and how 5-10 years from maybe we're gonna have robots that are significant others of people, and and so on, and that a lot of times people now already live in this gaming world. And then they
mhm,
brought up a good point because they were like, well, right now it might seem weird if your girlfriend is a robot or your boyfriend or significant other, but we also felt the same way about online dating. So, like online dating before in like what, like late
mhm,
90s, early 2000s, right? Like that was like so new, and it was like so like, no, that's not what it is. And today a lot of people
mhm.
meet via online dating apps, and it's a complete normal. It's almost like that's where you go to. And I wonder, if that's where we're going to go with, the personal relationships and so on. So that alone is scary, but it's like so just on that note, it's like, that's so scary. And I can only imagine how much the world of work is going to look different, right? It's
Yeah,
unimaginable.
this one is a scary topic because it involves also some psychology and how people react to things. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you have a person who you're dealing with, you can have some empathy, you can have some fights, you can have some whatever. It's just a relationship with another human being, right? But when you have a relationship with the bot, with the computer, who also tells you things and expresses some feelings maybe, it's just
Mm-hmm.
weird. You're right. I would feel very strange to deal with such a tool.
Yeah.
But then again, like you said before, we were feeling this weird about online dating. Before that, we were scared of email, and we were saying like, what is that email, like why would I want to send digital note to somebody, like why, like that's doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's very, very interesting world coming up.
Yeah. What are you doing in your, like, maybe just in your practice, like day to day, or and maybe whenever you make time for these things? But how do you make sure you stay relevant in the world of work? Like, what are you thinking about, preparing for, if anything? Or you're like, let it come. Whenever it comes, I'll deal with it.
Yeah, well, I usually don't focus too much on hard skills because they're really easy to acquire. I go to courses. There's like millions of courses right now. You can find an expert in anything, and it's relatively cheap. It's not like you have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get your degree in this these days, right? I almost feel like I should have never went to university and just go to these courses, but not to discourage people to do that. Um, but at the same time, I'm trying to focus right now mostly on soft skills. Like I'm trying to network more with people, go to conferences, and just practice my like personal connections with people and communication, collaboration, uh, feedback, all these type things. Because I
Hmm.
think we as people better. If you get better at this, you will always find a place to work. You will always find your community and things like that. But hard skills like learning programming language, it's never been easier than today.
Yeah.
And if you need to learn like AI or anything, there's so many plugins right now, so many frameworks you can use. Same thing with anything in technology, basically.
Yeah.
So if you go for like a work change, good job change, or anything like that, depending on what they require, it's 2 3 months, and you know this what they're using.
Yeah.
What's hard is to get better at communication, for example, or interviewing, or any other soft skills. Basically, I'm just saying things that
Hmm.
are relevant
Hmm.
to my profession right now. But for developer, it may be something like presentation, how to present your work, or how to
Yeah.
pitch for a new feature that you want to build, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was always stronger on the soft skills than the hard skills because of the non-analytical brain. And I've never, like, I feel like my whole life so far, I've struggled with trying to figure out what is it that I'm good at. And now over the last several years, when I see the need for soft skills, and I'm like, oh, like, this is actually comes natural to me, right? Like that, the soft
Hmm.
skills piece is like the easy. And I've spent my whole life just trying to get better at technical skills instead of just maybe honing on to like more even soft skills, like growing within that. But it's interesting how the world is kind of shifting, and as I grow in my career and I work again with a lot of software developers, I see the need for that, and I see a lot more people hitting a plateau in their career because they don't have the people management skills, because they don't have the
Hmm.
influence skills and be able to present and sell and all of those things that are becoming more and more important. And then it's like, they push so much of that in universities, right? Like we don't study a lot of soft skills. I mean, you kind of acquire some of them just being a student, but not
Yeah.
really. It's more of just like, a particular knowledge, and soft skills are so qualitative and not quantitative that it's hard to
Hmm.
grasp, right? It's interesting.
Yeah, and it has to start from schools, from like early ages, because kids, they can learn much faster. And I remember my school, we never thought any of that.
Hmm.
Even if you like had to report on something, and you come up in front of class and you say something, it's not really the same. It just felt a little bit weird, and it's not like, it's not getting ready for profession and work with people. It's just still learning something very like a hard skill. You're still learning that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, speaking of that, you've started a podcast, which I think is a brilliant way to practice so many soft skills. So
Yeah.
what kind of I guess inspired you to start the podcast, and tell me what the podcast is about.
Yeah, so last year I started thinking like, okay, so I wanted to start building my network and start connecting with more people and just see who's out there, who's doing what. And I started also listening to many podcasts over the pandemic time,
Mm-hmm.
while driving, while just doing some fitness work at home or whatever. And I said, well, that's kind of an interesting idea. Maybe I should try something like that rather than just consuming all this content without knowing even these people and who they are. I can research, I can read about them, but let me just talk to them. That's much easier. That's much better. Not easier, but better. And then I started going to some conferences and trainings here locally in DC area just to find those connections. And then I said, well, let me just do it over the podcast because I can do it every week. I can meet much more people that way. And going to conferences and trainings takes so much time. It costs money, and they don't happen that frequently. So yeah, so that's what basically inspired me as a first major thing, just to start connecting with people and getting to know them and promote myself a little bit as well. So some people know me. So that was kind of the reason. And the podcast is basically about product management, software development, technologies, and leadership, and things like that. So it's been there for like a couple months now. So yeah, that's let's see how it goes. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's a beautiful journey. I totally agree with you on the networking. You know, my podcast is entering year 4 now, and when I started it, for me, I started it as kind of like a marketing tool in the beginning. So, and it was really random. My business partner at the time, he said, "You always talk to people. Like, just record your conversations. It's great content. We can use it. We can repurpose it, and da da da." I was like, "Okay, cool." So, like, you know, we had a different kind of aspiration. And as I started doing the podcast, I think you'll find the same. And a lot of my podcaster friends feel the same way. Is like you start to learn so much more about yourself, and it's probably one of the best relationship building platforms, because like you get to know somebody a little bit differently, you know, and it's and you have a genuine conversation, and you just have a chat human to human. You learn a lot about other people, and return learn a lot about yourself. It's I always tell everybody, like, start a podcast. You know, the key is to stay consistent and to stay with it. That's it. Like, I feel like sometimes you don't even see the benefit of it until you like keep going, and then like every month, every, you know, every quarter, every year, you start to see a whole other world just unravel. It's a beautiful journey. I'll always say it was the best professional development thing I've ever started. Like, the best education is a podcast. It's
Yeah, I agree with
phenomenal.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great way, and especially if you find a topic that you really like, and you can talk to many people about that, and yeah, that's a great thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of people also, and I know you mentioned, you talk about like tech and leadership, and I've always been so all over the place, and I'm like, as long as I just want to talk to somebody, you know, like, as crazy as it might sound, I don't have an agenda. I don't have, you know, I was like, I just want to have a conversation. I think everybody has a story, and I want to hear people's stories, and I want to know why people do what they do, you know. So I guess it's more
Yeah,
towards career, you know, change and those kind of things. You know, it's all about, like, you know, getting 1% better each day. So that's all I really care about, is like, what are different people doing to like grow in their particular careers. So I'm curious to see how yours will, you know, evolve and change. Do you see yourself covering other topics, or you kind of like, you think like leadership and tech is where it's at for you right now?
for right now, I think yes, because there's so much to cover in this area for
Yeah.
now,
Mhm.
and so many people doing so many great things that I would like to explore and talk to them. But eventually, maybe it will go somewhere. Like I like history. I read a lot about history and watch videos and movies about that. So maybe I'll shift there somehow.
Yeah.
Or science, like watching something about astronomy or physics. It's really fascinates me. So
Hmm.
maybe talking to some scientists will be great. Who knows? But for right now, it's just something close to my profession, something that
Yeah.
helps me grow, and also something helps me learn. But then, yeah, you never know how it's gonna turn out.
Yeah. So, based on your experience in your profession, and just like, just, you know, being in this world, any advice to young professionals who are looking to, you know, just grow in the field of maybe project management, maybe it's tech, maybe it's government contracting. Like, what do you feel a young professional should focus on? Like, if you're that was you, you know, take 20 years ago, what advice would
Mhm.
you give to a younger self?
Well, that's advice number one is networking because that's everything. The more people you know, the more connections you have, the easier it is just in general in life. And I kind of missed out on this in my earlier school and career. I was just so busy doing many things at once, and I didn't have time for any of this. I had zero online presence. I, didn't go to any events or anything, just work. Now I have a little bit more time, I guess, or maybe I'm just getting older, who knows? But I'm starting thinking about these things. But that's lesson number one. I would wish I started like 10, 15 years ago. The second thing is soft skills, as I mentioned before. Start training, start reading about them, just makes yourself aware what they are, and practice every day. That's like very basic in anything. Even if you go to a group of strangers and start talking and introducing yourself, that will be huge. 5-10 years from now, you will find yourself in a much better place. Yeah. And I think those two are the biggest one. I can't say anything particular in project management or any or tech world. It changes so fast. If like, I can't even recommend like getting certifications or anything, because those things get updated every couple years. You can't keep up with this stuff. It's just like a never-ending story with them. Just get a couple, the ones that you feel comfortable with, get them to your profile, to your resume, and that's it. The rest is all just practice every day, and getting that real life experience.
Yeah, I have a thing about certifications, especially in like certain professional settings. Like, okay, listen, if you're a doctor, yes, I want you to be educated. And so if you're, if you're doing certain things, yes, but certain certifications, I feel like it's like a pyramid scheme, like they want you to buy the certification, and then they it's like you can't get a job without the certificate, or like you become less competitive if you don't have it, and then you have to join in a membership, and then you have to maintain your it's like this whole thing, and we all know it's like having a 4-year degree, right? Just because you have a degree doesn't make you any better than somebody who doesn't have. And same with certifications. I'm in my field of work and coaching and so on, talent development. I'm just so like I'm it really takes a lot, and I see so many opportunities out there, whether it's for consultancy work or anything else, and they want certain certifications, and I'm like, just give me a case study. How about that? Like, test what I actually know instead of, and anyway, I can go down rabbit hole, but it's certifications. You're right. Like, it's so hard to even keep up with them. It's like most people, up top don't even have a beyond a bachelor's or any certificates, like in many cases, so it's like, what are we, it's a trick for the mid-level. They think they want to like feed you like you need all these certs, but really, like, not really. So it's a pretty interesting place to be in the cert world. So I'm not a fan.
There are some certifications like you mentioned, like for example CPA, right? That one is very important, because that one actually teaches you a lot. But getting something for like Scrum Master or product owner or some basic product management stuff, PMP is hard as well. You will learn a lot of things from PMP certification. But those other ones, they're first of all, you have to study for like 2 days, and then you take exam, and it's like whatever, 50 questions or 100 questions. It's easy. It's very easy. There is virtually no effort to do this. Anybody can get it. And the best way to learn Scrum, for example, is to practice it.
Right.
I know sometimes it's hard because you need to get a job first, and then you need to get certificate before you get a job. It may be a requirement, but you have an opportunity to learn within your organization, and maybe go to your Scrum Master and say like, hey, do you mind if I shadow you for a month? Go to your meeting, see how you do things, and then try to pitch to your boss that you want to grow and you want to try this role, and see how it goes. Like, I had some developers on my teams ask me for this not long ago, and I encourage people to do that. Like, if you want to do presentation, go do it, practice it. Yes, of course, it's all your professional development, and just don't sit, and be quiet. Just go ask your peers for help. Talk to your team leads or tech leads, wherever you have, and ask for more responsibilities, for more opportunities. So I guess that's another, maybe suggestion number 3 or recommendation number 3 is Don't sit and expect that somebody will come to you and bring you something.
Mm-hmm.
Go and ask for more responsibilities yourself. And when
Yeah.
people see that you ask for something and you can actually deliver, they will gain trust to you, and they will always know that they can rely on you and put you in a bigger role, in a better position. You will earn more money, whatever your goal is. But don't try to just be quiet, sit it out, and hope that something will happen. Nothing will happen. You will be here in 10 years in the same situation.
Yeah. But Vit, what I'm starting to realize is a lot of people just want to be in that same space. And a lot
Yeah,
of people
and
don't
that,
want to grow,
yeah.
Yeah.
If that's where people are, and if that's
Mm.
how they feel about themselves, and they value other things,
Yeah.
sure, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing I think in the last 2 years that I had to wrap around. I was like, oh, because I'm in talent development, my job is to help people grow and perform at their best. And I started to realize, I was like, oh, it's like, well, some people are just happy where they are. Maybe they don't want to do a million things and be a manager. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because then it's like, oh, okay, I just need to meet people where they are and like just help them be the best that they can be where they want to be, instead of where I see the potential for them. And that's hard, because it's like goes against everything that I am as a talent development professional. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't blame them. I mean, in this world of work, I don't blame them. They just want to stay put. So
Yeah, yeah, it's nothing wrong with that. If you feel comfortable with doing something and you don't want to grow to something else, that's fine. I have so many developers or team members. They can be doing other things than writing code, and they don't want to become tech lead. They don't want to become manager. Like, no, I
yeah.
hate this thing. I don't want to do it. Let me just be my sit on my cube and do my coding thing. That's what I love. Okay, fine, do it.
Yeah, yeah. So looking like 6 months, 12 months from now, what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? Is there anything in your world that you're like, what, this is what I want to work on in the next 6 to 12 months? Anything in particular that you're excited about?
Well, from my work, it's pretty already set up. We have some things to do, and that's the fiscal year ends on September 30, and we have plenty of stuff to finish. So that's pretty stable there. From my personal life, uh, I I want to go to this conference in Texas in July,
What is it? Oh,
Agile
Agile
Alliance
Alliance.
conference.
Mm-hmm.
First time ever I want to do this.
Nice.
I'm actually gonna take my family, and we're gonna do a little road trip to Texas,
Oh, nice. Where
um,
in Texas is it?
in Dallas.
Dallas. Okay, nice.
Yeah. So we like taking road trips, so that's an opportunity for us to just
Yeah,
spend a couple days in the car together.
nice.
And then with my podcast, I'm just trying to get a few more people to sign up to talk to me, and we'll see how it goes. So maybe I'm trying to do this every week, and sometimes people it's hard to get to talk to people. Everybody's busy. Everybody's saying, "Well, let's do it next month. Let's do it in 6 months." So yeah, it's hard to start, but
Mhm.
I'm not trying to give up early. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's just once when I started, I had like my friends who would come on, and I always look back at like episode number. I was like, I'm so sorry I made you, but thank you for supporting me.
Yeah,
So it's always
right.
like, and now at this
Yeah,
point, like then eventually you get to a point you're like, I have enough content for 3 months. I don't want to do any more podcasts. I need a minute. So it's yeah,
yeah. It's a different problem.
it's different, but it picks up really quickly. So enjoy the quiet time for the moment. Enjoy the slower podcasting days. It does pick up pretty quickly once you kind of get it going. So, well, I'm excited to see all of that. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm excited to see your journey and stay in touch with you and continue and build on this relationship as well. So, thank you for your time and for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.